Hi boys and girls, I am so excited that we are continuing together on this journey of learning about signposts from Notice and Note. Today we're going to be talking about tough questions. And you see from the poster here, when you are reading and characters ask themselves a really difficult question, stop and ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? Oftentimes, these answers will give you more information about the conflict that you might find in the story, which is really important to help improve our comprehension. The nice thing about tough questions is that they're very often easy to spot in the text. They stand out. Oftentimes the character is asking a question, and they're usually questions that we don't have the answers to, such as, why don't they want to sit with me in the cafeteria? No easy answer. Or, why won't my parents let me go on this sleepover? No easy answer. And so those would be the kinds of questions we'd be looking for in a novel. Sometimes the main character asks those questions to him or herself, and other times they ask those questions to another character in the story. And there's some dialogue about what those answers might be. So remember, when you come to tough questions, stop and ask yourself, what does it make me wonder about as a reader? Tough questions are a great way for us to see what the internal conflict is going on with the character. Authors allow us to have a peek into the inside. When a character asks a question of another character, it generally tells us what they were thinking. And so that's a great place, if you're wondering what the conflict in the story is to look at the tough questions. Some of you may be wondering, do tough questions only appear as an actual question? And the answer is no. Authors also help us see internal conflict by the character's statements, such as a character who says, when Pa left, it made me wonder about how we will make it. That's more of a statement than a question, and yet it still gives up an insight as to the conflict that a character might be going through. Now I would like for you to take out your tough question handout. Also, take a moment to grab a highlighter and something to write with. And I'll give you a moment to do that. Very good. I'm assuming you now have what you need. And I'm going to read a little bit from the top and ask you to highlight this section. This would be on page 14. Right about in the middle, it says, tough questions are easy to spot. And they are. They're generally they stand out quite a bit. And I also want you to highlight when a character asks himself or herself or a trusted friend questions that are very hard to answer. These questions often reveal some sort of fear or problem that must be faced. And when they do, they help us understand the internal conflict that the character is working to overcome, or a difficult choice that the character must make. Here's an example, also on page 14, from Walk Two Moons. Later that afternoon, when Phoebe and I went downstairs, Mrs. Winterbottom was talking with Prudence. "Do you think I lead a tiny life?" she asked. Now that is a great, tough question, because it gets us to stop and think, what does this make us wonder about? Why is the character asking that question? Is it possible that the character feels her life is small or insignificant? Is it possible that the character feels like people don't like her? It makes us stop and think more deeply about the character, and as a result, have more comprehension of the text. I would like for you to now read passage 1. It's from Among the Hidden, and it starts the first sentence with, "Matthew and Mark never had to hide, did they?" he asked. And I would like for you to read the rest of the passage by yourself and mark along the way where you notice tough questions. And I'll talk with you once you have finished. Now that you have finished reading it, I want you to ask yourself, what do these questions, what does this passage make me wonder about? For instance, you might ask yourself, what is bothering the character? Or that the mother seems reluctant to answer these questions. So this must be something troubling. It must be part of the conflict. Or it also says, with unusual stubbornness, I want to know why I'm different. And although that's not a question, it's stated as a question, it certainly meets the tough question criteria. So these would be spots where we would stop and think. Okay? If you continue reading, there is an explanation from Dr. Beers and Dr. Probst. And I would like for you to read those, underlining a little bit of the things that this passage makes them think about. Continue on to page 17, where there's another passage from Esperanza Rising. And again, I would like for you to read that passage, and then on the space below, answer the questions. What does that passage make you think about? And then tomorrow in class, we will review and discuss what some of your responses were. I hope you enjoy this, and I think that you'll find tough questions are easy to spot and help you come to a conclusion about the conflict in the story. Happy reading!